Ethan Ward had spent 6 months building the courage to say yes to one blind date canceling board meetings, leaving the office before dark, and silencing the voice that told him he was too broken for this. But as he sat alone in London's most exclusive restaurant, staring at the empty chair across from him and the brutal text that confirmed she wasn't coming, he realized some truths couldn't be outrun. Success had made him rich, powerful, and completely alone. He was about to leave when the door burst open, a breathless woman in a worn coat dragging a 6-year-old boy behind her, desperately asking if she could use that empty seat. What happened next wasn't the evening he'd planned. It was the conversation that would change everything, not because fate brought him the right person, but because it brought him the truth he'd been avoiding. Sometimes the best connections happen when your carefully laid plans fall apart. The rain had finally stopped, leaving London's streets glistening under the amber glow of street lights. Ethan Ward stepped out of his black Mercedes, adjusting his Tom Ford suit jacket with the mechanical precision of a man who'd spent years perfecting the art of appearing composed. The restaurant before him, La Lumiere, one of Covent Garden's most exclusive establishments, gleamed like a promise he wasn't sure he believed in anymore. 6 months. It had taken him 6 months to say yes to this blind date. 6 months of his assistant gently suggesting it, of his sister insisting he needed to rejoin the human race, of staring at his phone at 2 a.m., wondering if he'd forgotten how to be anything other than a CEO. He'd canceled 3 board meetings for tonight, rescheduled a conference call with Singapore, left the office at 6 p.m. for the first time in, he couldn't remember. The weight of those decisions sat heavier on his shoulders than any merger or acquisition ever had. The Mater D recognized him immediately. Money had a language of its own, and Ethan spoke it fluently. "Mr. Ward, your table is ready. The lady hasn't arrived yet, but that's fine." Ethan's voice carried the smooth detachment of a man who'd spent decades in boardrooms. "I'm early." But he wasn't early. He checked his watch, a vintage Patek Philippe his father had given him before the accident, 7:30 p.m. exactly. She was late. Or perhaps she'd seen him walk in and reconsidered. He wouldn't blame her. His own reflection in the restaurant's windows showed a man who looked like he'd stepped out of a magazine spread. Impeccable, intimidating, impossibly distant. The table they'd reserved sat by the window, overlooking the cobblestone square where street performers usually gathered. Tonight the square was empty except for a few tourists hurrying toward the theater district. 2 wine glasses, 2 sets of silverware, 2 menus. The second chair mocked him with its vacancy. "Can I start you with something to drink, sir?" The waiter appeared with that particular brand of obsequious politeness reserved for tables that promised generous tips. Chateau Margaux, 2015. Ethan ordered without looking at the wine list. Might as well drink something worth the humiliation. His phone buzzed. Finally. But it wasn't a message saying running late or caught in traffic. It was short, brutal in its efficiency. "Hey, I can't do this. You seem like a great guy, but honestly, you're too intense for me. I saw your LinkedIn. Your life looks ... exhausting. I'm sorry. Take care." Ethan read it twice, then a third time. Each word felt like a small cut, not deep enough to bleed, but enough to remind him he could still feel something. Too intense. He almost laughed. His therapist, the one he'd seen exactly 3 times before deciding therapy was inefficient, had used the same word. So had his ex-wife, though she'd dressed it up with other descriptors, emotionally unavailable. "Married to your work, present but not really here." The waiter returned with the wine, performing the elaborate ritual of presenting the label, pouring a taste, waiting for approval. Ethan waved him off. "Just leave the bottle. Will the lady be joining you soon, sir?" "No." The word came out harder than he intended. "She won't." Around him, La Lumiere hummed with the sounds of successful Friday evening, laughter from a table of colleagues celebrating a promotion, the intimate murmur of a couple on what was clearly a very good date, the clink of champagne glasses toasting something worth celebrating. He sat in the middle of it all, an island of expensive solitude. His phone sat face down on the table. 17 unread emails. 4 missed calls from the office. The Tokyo deal needed his signature by Monday. The quarterly reports needed review. The world kept spinning, kept demanding, kept consuming every minute he offered and then asking for more. And here he was, dressed in a suit that cost more than most people's monthly rent, drinking wine that could fund a family vacation. Sitting alone because somewhere along the way he'd become too much of what success demanded and not enough of what connection required. Ethan poured himself a second glass, watching the wine catch the candlelight. He'd give it another 15 minutes, he decided. Not because he thought anything would change, but because leaving immediately felt like admitting defeat too quickly. He'd spent his entire career calculating risks and managing outcomes. Surely he could manage sitting alone with a bottle of wine without it feeling like the saddest thing he'd done all year. The rain started again, light at first, then building to a steady rhythm against the windows. Outside, people ran for cover, newspapers held over their heads, laughter trailing behind them as they dodged puddles. Ethan raised his glass to the empty chair across from him. To intensity, he muttered. He had no idea that in exactly 4 minutes the restaurant door would open, and his carefully controlled world would tilt on its axis. The door of La Lumiere burst open with enough force to turn heads. A woman stumbled in, breathless and apologetic, her hair plastered to her face from the rain. She wore a coat that had seen better years and carried a backpack that looked like it had survived a war. Behind her, gripping her hand with the determination of someone who refused to be left behind, was a boy of about 6, his sneakers squeaking against the polished marble floor. "I'm so sorry," she was saying to the maître d', her voice carrying across the restaurant in a way that made Ethan look up from his wine. "I know we don't have a reservation, but everywhere else has an hour wait, and my son hasn't eaten since breakfast, and The maître d's expression could have frozen champagne. "Madam, as I explained, we are fully booked this evening. Perhaps you could try, please." The word came out desperate, and Ethan watched as the woman's shoulders sagged. She wasn't begging for herself, he realized. She was begging for the kid, who was now leaning against her leg, looking at the tables of food with the kind of hunger that had nothing to do with manners. "Just ... do you have anything? We can share a plate. We won't stay long." Ethan found himself standing before his brain fully processed the decision. His voice cut through the awkward silence with the authority of someone accustomed to being heard. "Excuse me." The woman turned, and for the first time, Ethan got a clear look at her. Mid-30s, maybe. Tired eyes that had laugh lines around them despite the exhaustion. No makeup, no jewelry except for a simple watch with a cracked face. She looked at him with the wary expression of someone who'd learned to expect disappointment. "I have an extra seat," Ethan heard himself say, "if you need somewhere to wait until a table opens up." The maître d's eyes widened. "Mr. Ward, I'm sure we can find another solution. It's fine." Ethan surprised himself with how much he meant it, or maybe he was just drunk enough on expensive wine and rejection to make spectacularly poor decisions. "Really?" The woman stared at him like he'd just offered her a winning lottery ticket. Are you sure? We don't want to intrude on your..." Her eyes flickered to the empty chair, the untouched place setting, and something shifted in her expression. Understanding, maybe. Or pity. Ethan wasn't sure which was worse. "I'm sure," he said, and gestured toward his table. "Please." She hesitated for exactly 3 seconds. Ethan counted before her son's stomach growled audibly, making the decision for her. "Okay. Thank you. Really, thank you so much." She guided the boy toward the table, whispering urgent instructions about manners and not touching anything. Ethan returned to his seat, suddenly hyper-aware of how ridiculous this situation was. He'd prepared himself for awkward small talk with a blind date. Not ... The woman settled into the chair across from him, the chair that had been mocking him for the past 30 minutes, and lifted her son onto the seat beside her, pulling it close. "I'm Olivia," she said, extending her hand across the table. Her palm was rough, calloused, the hand of someone who worked with them. "This is my son Noah." "Ethan." He shook her hand, then nodded at the boy who was staring at him with the unfiltered curiosity of childhood. "Hello, Noah. You have a fancy watch?" Noah observed. "Noah." Olivia's cheeks flushed. "Sorry, he's 6. Filter hasn't developed yet, it's fine." Ethan glanced at his Patek Philippe. "It was my father's." The waiter appeared, looking thoroughly confused by this development. "Sir, shall I bring another menu?" "Please." Ethan gestured to Olivia. "And whatever they'd like." Olivia opened the menu, and Ethan watched her eyes widen almost imperceptibly as she scanned the prices. £40 for a pasta dish, 65 for the sea bass. She closed it quickly. "Just water for me, please. And maybe, does the kitchen have anything simple for him? Chicken fingers, pasta with butter, anything like that?" "Madam, our chef can certainly prepare something suitable for the young man." "Nothing expensive," Olivia added quickly. "Really, just something basic is fine." Ethan found himself intervening again. "Bring the boy the chicken," and ... double quotes, he glanced at Olivia, "the salmon for her." In another glass, he looked directly at Olivia. "You look like you've had the kind of day that deserves better than water." "I can't. You can." He wasn't sure where this was coming from. Maybe the wine. Maybe the rejection text still burning in his phone. Maybe the fact that for the first time in months he was having a conversation that wasn't about quarterly earnings or market projections. "Consider it payment for saving me from drinking alone and feeling pathetic." Olivia studied him for a long moment, and Ethan had the unsettling sensation of being actually seen, not as CEO Ethan Ward, not as the man in the expensive suit, but as the guy sitting alone on a Friday night because someone thought he was too intense to love. Finally, she smiled. It transformed her entire face. "Okay. But only if you tell me why you're here alone with two place settings and a bottle of wine that probably costs more than my rent. Noah piped up. Are you sad, mister? And just like that, Ethan, wardmaster of boardrooms, commander of empires, man who never let anyone see behind the curtain, laughed. Actually laughed, for the first time in weeks. Yeah, kid, he admitted. I guess I am. The food arrived with the kind of theatrical presentation that made Noah's eyes go wide. The chef had prepared his chicken as if it were being served to royalty, artfully arranged with roasted vegetables carved into little stars. A small cup of golden fries and a tiny flag stuck in the top that read Le Poulet. That's the fanciest chicken I've ever seen, Noah whispered, loud enough for the neighboring tables to hear. Olivia Salmon sat before her like an accusation perfectly seared, resting on a bed of asparagus and risotto garnished with microgreens and edible flowers. She stared at it for a moment before picking up her fork with the careful deliberation of someone who hadn't eaten a meal like this in a very long time. So, she said, taking a sip of the wine Ethan had poured for her. Blind date? Ethan nearly choked on his Chateau Margaux. That obvious? Two place settings, one very alone man drinking expensive wine at 8 p.m. on a Friday? Olivia raised an eyebrow. I've worked enough restaurant shifts to recognize the setup. Plus, you've checked your phone 4 times since we sat down. He set the phone face down deliberately. She canceled. Via text. 20 minutes after I arrived. Ouch. Olivia cut a piece of salmon, and Ethan noticed she divided her portion carefully, eaten half, wrapping the other half in a napkin when she thought he wasn't looking. Saving it. For later. For tomorrow. What was her reason? I'm too intense, apparently. The wine was making him honest. Dangerously so. Are you? The question caught him off guard. Most people would have offered sympathetic denials or changed the subject. Yes, he admitted. Probably. I work 80-hour weeks. I haven't taken a vacation in 3 years. I answer emails at 2 a.m. and consider it normal. My ex-wife used to say I was present but not really there, like a very expensive piece of furniture. Olivia laughed, not mockingly, but with genuine amusement. Wow. She actually said that? Among other things. Ethan found himself smiling despite the memory. What about you? Friday night dinner at La Lumiere doesn't seem planned. You mean stumbling and soaking wet with a 6-year-old wasn't my master plan? Olivia took another sip of wine, and some of the exhaustion seemed to lift from her features. I work 2 jobs. Daytime at a call center, nights cleaning offices. Usually Noah stays with my neighbor, Mrs. Chun, but she had a doctor's appointment that ran late. The call center supervisor needed me to stay for an extra shift, so I had to bring him with me to the evening job. You brought him to clean offices. He does homework in the break rooms. Sometimes the night security guard shares his dinner. She said it matter-of-factly, without self-pity, just stating facts. We were supposed to grab something quick after, but everywhere had massive waits because of some concert letting out. This place was closest when the rain started. Noah had finished his chicken and was now studying Ethan with that unnerving directness children possessed. Why don't you have any kids, Noah? Olivia's face went crimson. That's not. You can't just ask people, it's okay. Ethan surprised himself again. He'd spent years deflecting personal questions, redirecting conversations back to business, keeping everyone at arm's length. But something about this woman and her brutally honest child made him want to answer. I don't know. Work, mostly. My ex-wife wanted them, but the timing was never right. And then the timing ran out. That's sad, Noah declared with the blunt wisdom of childhood. Yeah, Ethan agreed quietly. It is. Olivia was watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read. Can I ask you something? And you can tell me to mind my own business. Go ahead. Why are you really here? Not at this restaurant, I mean. Why did you say yes to the blind date in the first place? Ethan swirled the wine in his glass, watching the legs run down the sides. It was a question he'd been avoiding asking himself, because 6 months ago I was in a hospital waiting room at 3 a.m. One of my executives had a heart attack at his desk, 47 years old. Brilliant guy. 3 kids he barely saw. They managed to save him, but ... double quotes he paused, remembering the man's wife's face, the terror and anger mixed together. His wife looked at me like I was responsible. Maybe I was. And that made you want to date? That made me realize I was heading toward the same waiting room. Different day, same ending. He met her eyes. I'm 42 years old. I have a penthouse I sleep in for 4 hours a night, a car I barely drive, enough money to buy almost anything. And absolutely no one who'd visit me in that hospital except my assistant, who's paid to care. The table fell silent except for Noah humming quietly while he arranged his remaining fries into patterns. Olivia leaned back in her chair, studying him. You want to know what I think? Please. I think you're not too intense. I think you're too afraid. Ethan felt the words land like a physical blow. Afraid of what? Of being the kind of vulnerable that can't be solved with a spreadsheet. She said it gently, without judgment. I work in offices like yours every night. I see the lights still on at 10 p.m., 11 p.m., midnight. You know what I've learned? The people who stay the latest aren't the hardest workers. They're the ones with nowhere else they'd rather be. That's not... Ethan started to protest, but the words died in his throat, because she was right. The waiter appeared to clear plates, and Olivia checked her phone, a cheap Android with a cracked screen. We should go. I'm sure you didn't plan on spending your evening babysitting strangers, but Ethan found he didn't want them to leave. Not yet. Stay for dessert, he heard himself say. They have a chocolate cake here that's genuinely obscene. Noah's head whipped around. Chocolate cake? Olivia hesitated, and in that moment, Ethan saw something shift in her expression. Not pity anymore, but something closer to recognition. Like she'd suddenly realized they weren't so different after all. Okay, she said softly. One more course. The chocolate cake arrived like a small monument to excess 3 layers of dark Belgian chocolate, held together with ganache that gleamed under the restaurant's soft lighting, topped with gold leaf that served no purpose except to announce its price tag. The waiter placed it ceremoniously in the center of the table with 3 forks, as if he'd been expecting this unlikely trio all along. Psst. Noah's eyes went so wide they seemed to take up half his face. Is that real gold? Edible gold, Ethan confirmed, amused by the boy's awe. Completely useless, entirely unnecessary, and ridiculously expensive. In other words, exactly the kind of thing adults pretend to enjoy. Olivia snorted into her wineglass. Spoken like a man who orders it regularly. I've never actually ordered it, Ethan admitted. I've seen it on menus in a dozen cities. Always wondered who would pay £40 for cake, and apparently tonight the answer is me. Trying to impress a woman and her brutally honest son. It's working, Olivia said, picking up her fork. She took a bite and closed her eyes, making a sound that might have been inappropriate in other contexts. Oh my God, this is... Noah, baby, try this. The boy needed no encouragement. And for the next few minutes, the conversation died as all 3 of them focused on the cake with the kind of reverence it probably didn't deserve, but somehow demanded anyway. Ethan couldn't remember the last time he'd actually tasted his food rather than simply consuming it between conference calls. Okay, Olivia said finally, setting down her fork and dabbing her mouth with the linen napkin. I have to ask, because this has been bothering me since we sat down. Ask away. What do you actually do, like for work? You've mentioned executives in hospitals and 80-hour weeks, but you very carefully avoided saying what any of that means. Ethan felt the familiar wall starting to rise, the deflection, the vague corporate speak, the pivot to another topic. But something about the wine or the cake or the way this strange evening had unfolded made him pause. I run a company. Tech sector, mostly B2B software solutions for supply chain optimization. Olivia blinked at him. You're going to have to translate that into human language. We make programs that help big companies move their products around more efficiently. So you're the reason my Amazon packages arrive in one day? Part of the ecosystem, yes. She leaned forward, her expression shifting into something he couldn't quite read. Let me guess. You optimize synergies and maximize stakeholder value? Ethan felt his face heat up. Yes. Actually, I do say things like that. How did you... I clean your offices, Olivia said, not unkindly. Or offices exactly like yours. Every night I empty trash cans full of PowerPoint printouts with those exact words. I vacuum around desks where people leave their computers on all night, screens still showing spreadsheets at 11 p.m. I've read enough whiteboards full of corporate jargon to speak the language. That must be fascinating, Ethan said, and immediately regretted the sarcasm in his voice. But Olivia didn't seem offended. Actually, it is. You know what I've noticed? The people who write that stuff on the whiteboards, the synergy maximizers, the disruptive innovators, all of you, you leave the saddest trash. Excuse me? Dinner wrappers from sad desk lunches, empty energy drink cans, prescription bottles for anxiety medication, antacids, sleep aids, birthday cards that never got signed sitting in desk drawers. She met his eyes directly. Photos of families you never see turned face down under stacks of reports. The observation hit harder than it should have. Ethan thought about his own desk, the framed photo of his ex-wife he'd finally removed last year, the drawer full of restaurant menus he'd never had time to try. You're observant. I'm invisible, Olivia corrected. People don't notice cleaners. We're like ghosts moving through your world after you've all gone home. You'd be amazed what you learn about people from what they leave behind. Noah had been quietly eating cake throughout this exchange, but now he suddenly spoke up, his voice cutting through the tension like a knife through ganache. Mister, why are you alone? The question hung in the air. Ethan opened his mouth, then closed it. Around them, the restaurant continued, its elegant dance waiters gliding between tables. Wine being poured, couples laughing at shared jokes. But at their table, time seemed to have stopped. "Noah, that's rude," Olivia started. "No," Ethan interrupted softly. "It's okay. It's a fair question." He looked at the boy, this small human who'd somehow gotten to the heart of everything in 6 words. "I'm alone because ... Because somewhere along the way, I forgot that being alone isn't the same thing as being successful." Olivia's expression shifted, not to pity, but to something that looked almost like recognition. "And being busy isn't the same thing as being fulfilled." "No," Ethan agreed. "It's not. My mommy's alone too," Noah announced, oblivious to the way his mother's face went pale. "But she says it's okay because she has me." "Noah, it's true." The boy was defensive now, loyal. "You said it last week when I asked why I don't have a daddy like Marcus. You said some people are alone and some people have partners, and both are okay as long as you have people who love you." Ethan watched Olivia struggle with whether to be mortified or proud of her son's memory. She settled on something in between. "Thanks for sharing that with the entire restaurant, baby." But Ethan was still processing the boy's words. "That's actually pretty wise." "I stole it from a parenting podcast," Olivia admitted with a rueful smile. "But yeah, it's what I tell myself at 2 a.m. when I'm cleaning office buildings and wondering if this is what my life is supposed to look like." "What is your life supposed to look like?" The question surprised them both. Olivia took a long sip of wine, considering. "I don't know anymore. I used to have plans. College degree, career in something meaningful, partner who stuck around, house with a garden. Standard dreams. Then Noah's dad decided fatherhood wasn't for him. My student loans became impossible, and my dreams got smaller. More practical. Smaller doesn't mean less valuable." "No," she agreed quietly, "but it does mean different. You learn to measure success in whether your kid ate vegetables today and whether you can cover rent and electricity in the same month." Ethan felt something crack open in his chest. Not quite pain, but close. "And here I am measuring it in quarterly earnings and market share." "Yeah," Olivia said, meeting his eyes with an intensity that made him want to look away. "Here you are." Noah yawned hugely, leaning against his mother's arm. The cake was gone, reduced to crumbs and smears of chocolate. The wine bottle was empty. The restaurant had begun to empty out around them. Couples leaving hand in hand, groups settling their bills with corporate cards. "We should go," Olivia said, but she didn't move to stand. "You've been incredibly kind, and I probably overstayed our welcome by about an hour." "You haven't," Ethan said, and meant it. "This has been the most honest conversation I've had in longer than I care to admit. Honest is my specialty. Can't afford anything else." She smiled, but there was sadness behind it. Ethan didn't sleep that night. He'd returned to his penthouse in Canary Wharf, 43rd floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Thames. Every surface carefully curated by an interior designer he'd met exactly once. The space was beautiful in the way museum exhibits were beautiful, impressive, expensive, and utterly devoid of life. He poured himself a scotch he didn't drink and stood at the window, watching the city lights blur in the rain. His phone sat on the granite counter, still showing those 17 unread emails, now joined by 23 more. The Tokyo deal, the quarterly reports, the infrastructure upgrade proposal that needed his signature. None of it seemed to matter. He kept thinking about Olivia's hands, calloused, efficient, the hands of someone who worked for everything she had. About Noah's question. Asterisk, "Why are you alone?" Asterisk about the way she'd looked at him when she said, asterisk, "You're not too intense. You're too afraid." Asterisk, at 3 a.m. he did something he hadn't done in 15 years. He opened his laptop and searched for himself, not his company, himself. Ethan Ward. The results were exactly what he expected. Business profiles, conference speeches, that insufferable Forbes article calling him London's most eligible bachelor that had made him cringe. Photos of him at charity galas, always in the same expression of polite detachment. Articles analyzing his business strategies, his acquisition decisions, his Midas touch. Not a single photo showed him smiling genuinely. He closed the laptop and finally went to bed as the sun was rising, his mind still full of a conversation that shouldn't have mattered but somehow did. Monday morning arrived with the relentless efficiency it always did. His assistant, Margaret, 62 years old, and possessed of the organizational skills of a military general, was waiting in his office with coffee and the day's agenda, printed in her precise handwriting. "You look terrible," she observed without preamble. "Good morning to you too, Margaret. I'm serious. When was the last time you actually slept?" She set the coffee down and crossed her arms. "And before you lie to me, remember I've been your assistant for 12 years. I know your tells." Ethan sighed, loosening his tie. Friday night was complicated. The blind date? Didn't show up. Margaret's expression softened. Oh, Ethan, I'm sorry. I really thought, it's fine. Actually, something else happened. He paused, not sure how to explain. A woman and her son ended up sharing my table. Single mother, works 2 jobs, most honest person I've talked to in years. And nothing. She left. I left. End of story. But Margaret was watching him with the particular intensity of someone who'd seen him through a divorce, 3 business crises, and his father's death. That's not the face of someone at the end of a story. Before Ethan could respond, his phone buzzed. It's head of HR, David Chun, requesting an urgent meeting. Margaret checked her tablet. You have 15 minutes before the board call. Tell him 5 minutes. David arrived in 4, carrying a tablet and wearing the expression of someone with a problem that needed solving. We have a situation with the facilities management position. The what? The new role you approved last month? Employee wellness and facilities coordination? We've been interviewing candidates all week. Ethan had a vague memory of signing off on the position. Something about improving workplace satisfaction and reducing turnover among support staff. The kind of HR initiative he usually delegated entirely. What's the situation? We have a strong candidate. Very strong, actually. No traditional qualifications, but her interview was remarkable. She identified problems in our current structure that our consultants missed. Practical solutions, real-world experience managing multiple responsibilities, natural leadership qualities. So hire her. David hesitated. She doesn't have a degree. Her resume shows call center work and commercial cleaning. Our standard requirements. Are those requirements necessary for the job, or are they just filters? Ethan heard Olivia's voice in his head. Asterisk, I clean your offices. Or offices exactly like yours. Asterisk, technically. They're filters, but then waive them. If she can do the job, she can do the job. Ethan pulled up his calendar. What's her name? David consulted his tablet. Olivia Carter. The world tilted slightly. Ethan's coffee cup stopped halfway to his mouth. Show me her resume. David handed over the tablet. There it was. Olivia Carter. 2 jobs listed, both current. Call center representative, daytime. Commercial cleaning specialist, evening shift. References from supervisors describing her as reliable, hardworking, exceptional problem solver. No mention of a 6-year-old son who asked devastating questions. When did she apply? Ethan's voice sounded strange to his own ears. 3 weeks ago, actually, before the position was officially posted. She sent a direct email to HR explaining why she thought we needed someone like her. David pulled up the email. It's worth reading. Ethan read it, then read it again. Asterisk, dear hiring manager. Asterisk, asterisk, I clean your offices 5 nights a week. In that time, I've noticed things, supply closets that aren't organized efficiently, break rooms that don't meet the needs of staff on late shifts, maintenance issues that go unreported because nobody knows who to tell. I've also noticed that the people who keep your building running, security, cleaning staff, cafeteria workers, never get asked what would make their jobs better. Asterisk, asterisk, I'm not a consultant. I don't have an MBA. But I know how this building works from the ground up, literally. If you're serious about this new position, you need someone who sees the whole picture, not just the executive. Asterisk, asterisk, I'd like to apply. Asterisk, it was the most honest cover letter Ethan had ever read. Sir? David was watching him carefully. Do you want me to move forward with her? Ethan's mind raced. This was why she'd been there that night. She'd just come from this building. His building. She'd been cleaning his offices, maybe even his floor, while he sat in restaurants waiting for dates that never showed up. Yes, he said finally. Make her an offer. Fair salary, full benefits, start date as soon as possible. You're sure? Without meeting her yourself? Asterisk, oh, I've met her. Asterisk, Ethan thought. Asterisk, and she's already told me everything I need to know. Asterisk, I'm sure, he said aloud. Sometimes the best candidates are the ones who show you what you're too blind to see yourself. Olivia stood outside the glass tower of Ward Technologies, her reflection staring back at her from the spotless windows she'd cleaned 100 times. But this time she wasn't wearing her cleaning uniform. This time she was wearing the only professional outfit she owned, a navy blazer she'd found at a charity shop. Pressed so many times the fabric was starting to shine, paired with black trousers and flats that pinched her toes. Her phone buzzed. Mrs. Chun confirming she'd picked up Noah from school. One less thing to worry about. Though Olivia had plenty of other things occupying that space, the electricity bill due Friday. The strange noise her car was making. The fact that she was about to walk into a job interview for a position she had absolutely no business applying for. Asterisk, what was I thinking? Asterisk, she'd written that email at 2 a.m. 3 weeks ago. Exhausted and angry after finding yet another passive-aggressive note from an executive complaining about the incompetent facilities staff. The note had been left on a desk covered in coffee rings and takeout containers. Written by someone who apparently believed cleaning fairies materialized at midnight to deal with their mess. She'd fired off the application in a fit of frustration, never expecting a response. When HR had called last week, she'd almost hung up, certain it was a mistake. But they'd insisted. They wanted to interview her. Today, 2 p.m. It was 1:57. Asterisk, you can do this. Asterisk, she told herself the same thing she told Noah before school every morning. Asterisk, you belong here just as much as anyone else. Asterisk, it was a lie, but a useful one. The lobby was exactly as she remembered, soaring ceilings. Marble floors she'd mopped on her knees. The reception desk where security guards checked badges she'd never been issued. But walking through the front door in daylight, as a candidate rather than invisible night staff, felt like entering a different dimension. Olivia Carter, the receptionist, young, polished, the kind of effortlessly put together Olivia would never be, smiled professionally. HR is expecting you. 42nd floor. The elevator ride felt eternal. Olivia watched the numbers climb, each floor a reminder of how far removed this world was from hers. These weren't the service elevators she used, the ones that smelled like industrial cleaner and moved with arthritic slowness. These were the executive elevators, all brushed steel and ambient lighting, rising so smoothly she barely felt the motion. Floor 42 was exactly as intimidating as she'd expected. Glass walls, ergonomic furniture, people in expensive suits moving with purpose. A woman about Olivia's age but inhabiting her clothes with an ease that spoke of money and confidence approached with an extended hand. Ms. Carter? I'm Jennifer Wu, HR Director. Thank you for coming in. Her handshake was firm, professional. This way, please. They walked through corridors Olivia had navigated in darkness, now flooded with natural light. Past offices where executives sat in leather chairs, past conference rooms with walls of screens, past break rooms that looked nothing like the ones on the ground floor where the cleaning staff took their breaks. Jennifer led her into a small conference room. Can I get you anything? Water? Coffee? Water would be great, thank you. Alone for a moment, Olivia tried to steady her breathing. The table was real wood, not laminate. The chairs probably cost more than her monthly rent. Through the window, London sprawled beneath them, a view she'd never seen except in reflections while cleaning these very windows at 3 a.m. Jennifer returned with water. In a glass bottle because apparently regular water wasn't good enough. An alarmed smile. So, Olivia, I've read your application. Multiple times, actually. It created quite a stir in our department. I'm sure, Olivia said carefully. I know I don't have the traditional qualifications. Forget traditional qualifications. Jennifer opened a folder. Tell me about the supply closet comment. You said in your email that ours aren't organized efficiently. Explain. Olivia blinked. She'd expected questions about her work history, her education gaps, why she thought she could do this job. Instead, they wanted her actual opinion. Well, she began slowly, your supply closets are organized by Typol cleaning products together, all paper goods together, all maintenance supplies together, which makes sense in theory. But in practice, it means if someone needs to clean a conference room, they're making 3 separate trips to gather everything they need. Cleaning solution from one shelf, paper towels from another section, trash bags from a third location. And your solution? Task-based organization. Create kits for specific jobs. Conference room kit, bathroom kit, kitchen kit. Everything needed for that task in one portable caddy. Reduces time, reduces errors, reduces the chance someone grabs the wrong product and damages expensive furniture. She paused. Which happened 2 months ago, by the way. Someone used the wrong cleaner on the executive floor wood paneling. Cost thousands to refinish. Jennifer was taking notes. How do you know that? I was the one who reported it. And got blamed for it, actually, even though it happened on the day shift. Olivia felt her cheeks heat. Sorry, that sounded bitter. That sounded honest. Jennifer looked up from her notes. What else have you noticed? And just like that, Olivia started talking. About the break room on the 3rd floor that nobody used because the vending machines were always empty. About the bathroom on the 17th floor with a leaking pipe that had been scheduled for repair for 6 months. About the night security guard who spent his shifts studying for engineering exams but had no desk lamp bright enough to read by. About the cafeteria staff who arrived at 5 a.m. but had no place to store their belongings securely. She talked about the things she'd seen while being invisible, the inefficiencies, the overlooked problems, the small frustrations that accumulated into big morale issues. The things that executives in 42nd floor offices never saw because they arrived after the building was already humming and left before it revealed its problems. Jennifer listened, asked questions, took more notes. 20 minutes passed, then 40. Olivia had never talked this much in an interview, had never been asked to. Okay, Jennifer said finally. Last question, and it's important. Why do you want this job? Olivia took a breath. She could give the safe answer, the one about growth opportunities and professional development. But something about this woman's directness, about the way she'd actually listened, made her want to tell the truth. Because I'm tired of being invisible, she said quietly. I've worked in buildings like this for 8 years. I've cleaned boardrooms where decisions get made that affect hundreds of people, including me. I've overheard strategies for improving employee satisfaction from people who've never asked the actual employees what would satisfy them. And I've watched good people, hard-working people who keep this place running, get treated like they don't matter because they don't have the right degrees or wear the right clothes. She met Jennifer's eyes directly. I want this job because I know I can do it, because I've been doing parts of it for free for years, just nobody called it that, and because I want my son to grow up seeing that where you start doesn't determine where you end up. The room fell silent. Jennifer was watching her with an expression Olivia couldn't read. Then she smiled. When can you start? Olivia's heart stopped. What? The job is yours if you want it. Salary is $55,000 annually. Full benefits, 2 weeks paid vacation. Starting Monday if that works for you. Olivia felt tears threatening and fought them back. $55,000. That was more than both her current jobs combined. That was health insurance. That was daycare she could actually afford. That was not choosing between electricity and groceries. Yes, absolutely yes. Excellent. Jennifer stood, extended her hand again. Welcome to Ward Technologies, Olivia. I think you're going to change things around here. As Olivia shook her hand, she thought about Friday night, about the man in the expensive suit who'd shared his table and his wine and his loneliness, about the chocolate cake and the honest conversations. She wondered if he knew what his company was doing right now, wondered if he'd approve. She'd never know that Ethan Ward had been standing in his office 3 floors above, watching her exit the building with a smile that transformed her entire face, his own reflection transparent in the window glass. Olivia's first day at Ward Technologies was nothing like she'd imagined. Jennifer met her at reception with a security badge that had her name printed in official letters. Olivia Carter, Employee Wellness Coordinator *, and a smile that seemed genuinely pleased to see her. Ready for the tour? As ready as I'll ever be. They started on the ground floor. But this time Olivia wasn't arriving through the service entrance at 10 p.m. She was walking through the main corridors, introduced to department heads and team leaders, given access codes and email accounts and a desk on the 38th floor with a view of the Thames. Her desk with her name on it. You'll report directly to me, Jennifer explained, but you'll interface with every department. Facilities, HR, operations, even finance when it comes to budget proposals. Your job is to identify problems and solve them. Think of yourself as the bridge between executive vision and ground-level reality. It sounded impossibly important. Olivia kept waiting for someone to realize they'd made a mistake, but nobody did. By the end of week 1, she'd reorganized 3 supply closets, instituted a maintenance request system that actually worked, and held her first meeting with the night staff, the people she'd worked alongside for years who now looked at her with a mixture of pride and disbelief. You made it out, Miguel, the night security guard said during a break. That's huge. I haven't made it anywhere yet, Olivia protested. I'm still figuring out how the coffee machine works. You're on the 38th floor, he countered. That's 18 floors higher than most of us will ever get. Don't downplay it. She hadn't thought about it that way. Hadn't considered that her success might mean something to people beyond herself and Noah. But walking through the building now, she noticed things she'd missed before. The way cleaning staff straightened slightly when they saw her badge. The way cafeteria workers asked her opinion on break room improvements. The way people who'd been invisible suddenly had someone who saw them. It was terrifying. It was exhilarating. It was exhausting. And through it all, Olivia couldn't stop thinking about Ethan Ward. She'd searched for him online after accepting the job, felt stupid for not doing it sooner. The Forbes articles, the business profiles, the conference photos, CEO of the company she now worked for, net worth in the hundreds of millions, 42 years old, divorced, no children. The man who'd shared his table and his wine and his honest admission that he was sad. Her boss's boss's boss, essentially. Maybe more bosses than that. She wasn't entirely clear on the organizational hierarchy yet. She'd considered reaching out, sending an email or a message through Margaret, his assistant whose name was on every company-wide communication, just to say thank you for that night, for the kindness that had somehow led to this, but what would she say? *, thanks for the cake and the conversation, by the way, I work for you now. Small world, hope this isn't weird. *, everything about it was weird. So she said nothing. kept her head down, focused on her work, and tried not to think about the fact that somewhere in this building, probably on one of the upper floors she didn't have clearance to access, was the man who'd looked at her across a restaurant table and admitted he'd forgotten how to be anything except successful. Ethan, meanwhile, was doing the opposite of keeping his head down. "Margaret, what floor is employee wellness on?" His assistant looked up from her computer with the expression of someone who'd been expecting this question for days. 38. Why? Just curious about the new initiatives. Dodge, huh? Double quotes. Margaret's tone suggested she wasn't buying it for a second. You want me to schedule a meeting with Miss Carter? Get a progress report on her first week? No. Yes. Maybe. Ethan ran a hand through his hair. Is that weird? Would that be weird? You're the CEO. You can request a meeting with anyone. That's not what I asked. Margaret set down her pen with deliberate care. Ethan, what exactly is going on? You've checked the 38th floor security logs 3 times this week. You've read every email report from HR about the wellness initiative. You asked David if the new hire was settling in well in a tone that suggested you actually cared about the answer, which frankly alarmed him. I just want to make sure we made the right choice. You always make the right choice. That's not what this is about. She studied him with the particular intensity of someone who'd known him long enough to see through every deflection. This is about the woman from the restaurant, isn't it? Ethan sighed. Did I tell you about that? You mentioned it Monday. Very casually. Too casually. And then you personally approved a new hire you'd never met for a position you barely remembered creating. Margaret leaned back in her chair. I've been your assistant for 12 years. I know when you're interested in someone. I'm not. He stopped. Okay, maybe I'm curious. She was different. Real. And now she works here and I don't know what the protocol is for. For what? Asking her out? Ethan, she's your employee now. It's not just weird, that's an HR nightmare, I know. Or he did know. Had been telling himself the same thing for 2 weeks, which is why I haven't done anything about it. But you want to. It wasn't a question. Ethan looked out his window, 52nd floor, corner office, the view that was supposed to represent everything he'd achieved. Somewhere 12 floors below, Olivia Carter was probably reorganizing something or listening to night staff concerns or doing exactly what he'd hoped she'd do when he'd pushed for her hiring. He'd told himself it was about giving her a chance, about recognizing talent that traditional systems overlooked. But Margaret was right. It was also about wanting to continue a conversation that had started over chocolate cake and had somehow gotten under his skin. Yes, he admitted quietly. I want to. Then you have a problem. I'm aware. Margaret was quiet for a moment, thinking, there might be a way. The quarterly town hall is next week. You always do a Q&A session. She might ask a question, and if she doesn't, then you respect professional boundaries like a mature adult and get over your crush like you're not a teenager. She softened slightly. Or you wait, see if she seeks you out. If this connection you felt was mutual, she'll find a way to reach out eventually. Ethan nodded, knowing she was right. Knowing he should focus on work, on the Tokyo deal that was finally moving forward, on the board meeting that would determine next quarter's strategy. But as he returned to his desk and pulled up his calendar, his eyes kept drifting to the security feed notification that showed exactly when Olivia Carter had badged into the building that morning. 7:47 a.m., 15 minutes before her official start time. He smiled despite himself. Of course she arrived early. Somewhere 12 floors below, Olivia was discovering a handwritten note on her desk from the night cleaning supervisor, thanking her for the new equipment requisition that had been approved in record time. She read it 3 times, feeling that strange combination of pride and imposter syndrome that had become her constant companion. Then she noticed something else. A coffee cup on her desk from the executive floor cafe, still warm. The kind with a good espresso, not the regular breakroom coffee. A small post-it note attached, *, welcome to the team. A friend *, no signature, no indication of who'd left it. But somehow, Olivia knew. She picked up the cup, inhaling the rich aroma, and looked up toward the ceiling, toward the floors above her where executives made decisions, and CEOs shaped destinies. Thank you, she thought. Not sure if the message could somehow travel through steel and concrete and glass. For seeing me. 52 floors above. Ethan Ward felt his phone buzz with a calendar reminder. Quarterly town hall next Thursday, 2 p.m. 1 week until he'd have a legitimate reason to be in the same room as her again. Quarterly town halls were mandatory for department heads. Optional for everyone else, but somehow they always drew a crowd. Free catered lunch probably helped. Olivia sat in the back row, her notebook open on her lap, feeling simultaneously conspicuous and invisible. 2 weeks in, and she still wasn't sure which category she belonged to, management or staff. Insider or outsider, someone who mattered or someone who was still proving she deserved to be here. Jennifer sat beside her, scrolling through her phone. First town hall? Is it that obvious? You're the only person taking notes before it's even started. Jennifer smiled. Relax. These things are usually pretty boring. Ethan does a presentation about quarterly numbers, talks about upcoming initiatives, takes a few softball questions from senior staff, and we all get back to work. Does he do these often? Every quarter like clockwork. He's actually pretty good at them, doesn't talk down to people. Answers honestly even when the news isn't great. Jennifer glanced at her. Why do you ask? Just curious about the format. Olivia kept her voice neutral, though her heart was doing something complicated in her chest. Want to know what I'm in for? The lights dimmed slightly. A hush fell over the auditorium. And then Ethan Ward walked onto the stage. Olivia's breath caught. He looked different than he had at the restaurant, more formal, more distant, the CEO armor fully in place. Charcoal suit, crisp white shirt, no tie. His hair was slightly longer than corporate standard, and under the stage lights she could see the faint circles under his eyes that suggested he still wasn't sleeping well. He took the microphone with easy confidence, and when he smiled at the audience, it was the practiced smile of someone who'd given 1,000 presentations. Nothing like the genuine laugh she'd heard over chocolate cake. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for coming. His voice carried easily through the space, strong, assured, exactly what you'd expect from someone who commanded boardrooms. I promise to keep this brief. I know you all have actual work to do, unlike me. Polite laughter rippled through the crowd. Olivia didn't join in. She was too busy watching him, trying to reconcile this polished executive with the man who'd admitted to being sad over expensive wine. The presentation began. Quarterly earnings up 7%, new contracts, 3 major acquisitions. Expansion plans offices opening in Singapore and Frankfurt. Employee headcount growing across all divisions. Stock prices favorable. Olivia found herself genuinely interested despite Jennifer's warning. Ethan presented data clearly, acknowledged challenges without sugarcoating them, and gave credit to specific teams by name. He wasn't just reading slides, he was telling a story about where the company had been and where it was going. Now I want to talk about something different, Ethan said, about 20 minutes in. The slide behind him changed to show a simple title. Asterisk Investing in People. Asterisk 3 months ago. I spent some time thinking about what makes a company successful. The easy answers are profit margins, market share, operational efficiency, all true, all important, but they're also incomplete. He paused, and for just a moment his corporate mask slipped. The real answer is people, not just the executives, not just the department heads, everyone who makes this place run. The audience shifted slightly. This wasn't the usual quarterly address tone, so we've made some changes. New wellness initiatives, better benefits for support staff, a dedicated position to identify and address workplace issues that traditionally get overlooked. He looked directly at the audience, not at the senior staff, in the front rows, but at the back, where people like Olivia sat. Because I realized we've been measuring the wrong things. Success isn't just about how much money we make. It's about whether the people making that money possible can actually live their lives with dignity and security. Olivia felt her throat tighten. She knew exactly what had prompted this shift. Could trace it back to a rainy Friday night and a conversation about sad desk lunches and prescription bottles and drawers. Questions? Ethan opened the floor. Hands shot up immediately. The usual suspects, senior staff asking about international expansion timelines, department heads questioning budget allocations. Ethan fielded them smoothly, professionally, the CEO mask firmly back in place. 20 minutes of Q&A, then 25. Olivia kept her hand down even as Jennifer nudged her. You should ask something. Good way to get noticed. I'm not ready to be noticed yet. Too late. You're the employee wellness coordinator. This whole section was basically about your job. Jennifer was right. Olivia knew she should ask something, establish herself, show she was engaged and thoughtful and deserved this position. But the thought of speaking in front of 300 people, of having Ethan's attention on her, of potentially revealing that they'd met before. Last question, Ethan announced, scanning the room. Before Olivia could stop herself, before her brain could override her hand, she raised it. Ethan's eyes found her immediately. For one impossible second, time stopped. She watched recognition flash across his face, quickly controlled, professionally masked, but unmistakably there. Yes, he said, his voice carefully neutral. In the back, 300 people turned to look at her. Olivia stood on shaking legs, grateful that her voice came out steadier than she felt. You mentioned measuring the wrong things. What made you realize that? And what are the right things to measure? It was a safe question. Professional. The kind any engaged employee might ask. But they both knew what she was really asking. Asterisk, do you remember that night? Did it change you like it changed me? Asterisk. Ethan was quiet for a moment, and Olivia could see him deciding how much truth to give. Someone gave me perspective I didn't know I needed, he said finally. Made me see the company from an angle I'd been ignoring. As for what to measure employee retention, workplace satisfaction, whether people can afford to take their kids to dinner without checking their bank account first, the specificity of that last part asterisk take their kids to dinner asterisk made Olivia's heart race. He did remember. Of course he remembered. The right metrics, Ethan continued, his eyes still on her, are the ones that recognize people aren't just resources to be optimized. They're humans with lives that matter beyond their productivity. Does that answer your question? ... He paused, waiting for her name, though they both knew he knew it. Olivia, she said. Olivia Carter. And yes, that answers it. Thank you. She sat down quickly, heat flooding her face. Jennifer was staring at her with undisguised curiosity. That was ... intense, was it? Olivia's voice came out strangled. He looked at you like you'd asked him the meaning of life instead of a standard corporate values question. Before Olivia could respond, Ethan was wrapping up the town hall, thanking everyone for their time, reminding them about the upcoming holiday schedule. People began filing out, conversations resuming, the energy shifting back to normal. Olivia gathered her things, ready to escape into the crowd, but Jennifer's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then at Olivia, eyebrows raised. Huh? What? Margaret Athon's assistant just messaged me. Wants to know if you're available for a brief meeting. Today, 4 p.m. Olivia's stomach dropped. A meeting? About what? Doesn't say. Just says Mr. Ward would like to discuss the wellness initiatives. Jennifer was watching her carefully now. Olivia, have you met him before? Double quotes, there was no point lying. Yes, once. Briefly. Before I worked here. And you didn't think to mention this? It didn't seem relevant. The CEO personally wanting to meet with you after you ask him one question seems pretty relevant. Jennifer's tone wasn't accusatory, just puzzled. Should I confirm the meeting? Olivia thought about saying no. About maintaining professional distance. About not complicating her brand new job with whatever this was. About protecting herself from hope that probably led nowhere. But she also thought about Ethan's face when he'd said, asterisk, someone gave me perspective I didn't know I needed. Asterisk about the coffee cup that had appeared on her desk. About the fact that she'd spent 2 weeks trying not to think about him and failing spectacularly. Yes, she said quietly. Confirm it. As they exited the auditorium, Olivia caught one last glimpse of Ethan on stage, speaking with a group of executives. But his eyes tracked her movement through the crowd, just for a second, before returning to his conversation. 4 p.m. 3 hours away. Olivia had absolutely no idea what she was going to say. The 52nd floor was exactly as intimidating as Olivia had imagined. She'd never had clearance to come up here, not as a cleaner and barely now as an employee. Margaret greeted her with a warm smile that did nothing to settle her nerves. Miss Carter, right on time. Can I get you anything? Water, tea? I'm fine, thank you. Olivia's palms were sweating. She'd changed her blazer twice, redone her hair 3 times, and given herself a pep talk in the bathroom mirror that would have been embarrassing if anyone had overheard. He's just finishing a call. Should only be a moment. Margaret gestured to a leather chair. Please, sit. But Olivia couldn't sit. She walked to the floor, to ceiling windows, looking out over London. From up here, the city looked manageable, organized, like something you could hold in your hand and control. She thought about the view from her apartment, a brick wall and a narrow alley where foxes rummaged through bins at night. Different worlds. That's what she'd told herself that night at the restaurant, that they came from different worlds. Olivia, she turned. Ethan stood in his office doorway, and for the first time since the town hall, they were looking at each other without 300 witnesses. Hi, she said, because what else was there to say? Come in, please. His voice was professional, but his eyes were something else entirely. Certain, hopeful, nervous. All the things CEOs probably weren't supposed to be. His office was stunning. Corner windows on 2 sides, minimalist furniture that probably cost more than her car. Books lining one wall, and a desk that looked like it had never seen clutter. But what caught her attention was the small detail on his credenza. A photo of him at maybe 10 years old, with an older man who had the same eyes. His father, probably. The one who'd given him the watch. Thank you for coming, Ethan said, closing the door. They stood there awkwardly for a moment. CEO and employee, man and woman. 2 people who'd shared chocolate cake and honest truths and now didn't know what the rules were. You wanted to discuss wellness initiatives? Olivia kept her tone neutral, even though her heart was hammering. No. Ethan ran a hand through his hair, destroying its careful styling. I mean, yes, we can discuss those if you want, but that's not why I asked you here. Then why? Because I haven't stopped thinking about that night. The words came out rushed like he'd been holding them for 2 weeks. Because I've checked the security logs to see when you arrive every morning, which is creepy, and I apologize. Because I left coffee on your desk and immediately regretted it because what if you thought it was weird or inappropriate or That was you. Olivia felt something warm bloom in her chest. Yes. Was it weird? Completely. She smiled. I loved it. Ethan's shoulders dropped with relief. Good. Okay. Because I've been driving Margaret insane asking about you. And she's threatened to quit twice this week. I haven't been much better. Jennifer caught me Googling you 3 times. Olivia took a breath. Ethan, what are we doing here? I don't know. He stepped closer but maintained careful distance. I know there are rules. HR policies about relationships between management and staff, power dynamics, all very valid concerns. I know I should probably keep this professional and just tell you you're doing great work, which you are, by the way, thank you. But I also know that I haven't felt this interested in talking to someone in years, maybe ever. And I don't know what the protocol is for that. Olivia felt like she was standing on the edge of something. One step forward was risk, complication, potentially destroying the job she desperately needed. One step back was safety, professionalism, pretending that night had been just a random kindness between strangers. Neither do I, she admitted. But I think we should figure it out. Together. Yeah, she smiled. Though maybe we start with something simpler than whatever this is, like dinner. Dinner. Ethan's face transformed with a genuine smile. Not the CEO's smile, but the one she'd seen over chocolate cake. I know a place. Small, quiet, excellent wine list. And I promise to actually show up this time. That would be a good start. There's just one problem. He was still smiling, but there was uncertainty in his eyes. You work for me. Not directly, but still. If this becomes something, if we become something, people will talk. They'll question whether you earned this job or whether I gave it to you. They'll make your life harder. Let them talk. Olivia surprised herself with her certainty. I know I earned this position. You know I earned it. And anyone who questions that hasn't read my 3-week progress report, which Jennifer says made the board cry actual tears of joy, it was a very good report. I'm a very good employee. She stepped closer, closing some of the careful distance between them. And you're someone I'd like to get to know better, if you're willing to risk the complications. Ethan looked at her, really looked, the way he had across the restaurant table when he'd admitted to being sad. I've spent my entire life avoiding complications, playing it safe, following the rules, measuring every risk. And you know what that got me? Alone in a restaurant, drinking expensive wine, wondering when I'd forgotten how to be human. And now I think maybe some complications are worth it. He extended his hand, formal and ridiculous and somehow perfect. So yes, Olivia Carter, I would very much like to have dinner with you. As 2 people who might become friends or might become something more or might just enjoy each other's company while we figure it out. She took his hand. His palm was warm, his grip steady. When? Tonight? I have to pick up Noah from Mrs. Chun at 6. Bring him. The words surprised them both, but Ethan didn't take them back. I owe him a proper thank you for asking the best question I've heard in years. Olivia felt tears threatening. He asked why you were alone, and you said being alone isn't the same thing as being well. Ethan's voice was soft. You were right about that, about me being afraid, about everything. I'm pretty smart sometimes, you're pretty smart all the time. He was still holding her hand, neither of them seeming to want to let go. So, tonight, you, me, and your brutally honest 6-year-old. Somewhere casual where chicken comes without flags in it. That sounds perfect. They stood there for another moment, hands linked, the London skyline spreading out behind them like a promise. Then Olivia's phone buzzed. Noah's school, probably, or Mrs. Chun confirming pickup time. The real world intruding on this small pocket of possibility. She pulled her hand back reluctantly. I should go. Budget meeting at 5, of course. I'll text you. Wait, I don't have your number. It's in the company directory. Right. Professional channels. Ethan looked adorably flustered. That's not weird, is it? Everything about this is weird. Olivia was smiling as she moved toward the door. But I think I'm okay with weird. Olivia? She turned back. Ethan was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite name, something between gratitude and wonder. Thank you for showing up that night, for taking this job, for giving me a chance to try again. Thank you for not letting me stay invisible. She left before either of them could say anything else that would make her cry in the CEO's office. But as the elevator descended, as the floor numbers counted down from 52 to 38, Olivia couldn't stop smiling. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number, but she knew who it was before opening the message. Asterisk 7 p.m. There's a pub in Shoreditch. Best fish and chips in London. Noah will approve. Asterisk, she typed back. Asterisk will be there. Asterisk, and then, because sometimes you had to take the risk. She added, asterisk, looking forward to it. Asterisk, 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Asterisk, me too. Asterisk. Olivia stepped out of the elevator on the 38th floor where her desk waited with its view of the Thames. where her notebook held lists of problems to solve and people to help, where her name badge proclaimed she belonged. She thought about Ethan 52 floors above, probably staring at his phone with the same ridiculous smile she couldn't wipe off her face. About Noah, who'd asked the right question at the right time. About fate, which hadn't failed that night, it had just changed the plan. Jennifer looked up as Olivia passed her desk. Well, how did it go? Good, Olivia said, still smiling. Really good. Just good? Okay, maybe better than good. She paused at her office door, looking back. Jen, do you believe in second chances? I believe some people deserve them more than others. Jennifer was watching her with knowing eyes. And I believe you both fall into that category. Olivia nodded and entered her office, closing the door on a day that had somehow shifted from ordinary to extraordinary. Outside her window, London was lighting up against the dusk, millions of lights, millions of lives, millions of possibilities. And tonight, at a pub in Shoreditch over fish and chips and honest conversation, maybe two of those lives would figure out how to stop being alone, together. If this story reminded you that sometimes the best moments in life are the ones we never planned, hit that like button and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Whether you're grinding through 2 jobs like Olivia, sitting alone in your own metaphorical restaurant like Ethan, or just trying to figure out where you belong in this world, this story is for you. Subscribe to the channel if you want more stories about real people finding connection in unexpected places, because we're just getting started. Your support means we can keep bringing you these heartfelt narratives that prove it's never too late to start over. Drop a comment below telling us, what country are you watching this from? We love seeing our global community come together over stories that remind us we're all human, no matter where we are. And while you're at it, tell us, have you ever had a chance encounter that changed your life? A conversation with a stranger that stayed with you? We read every single comment, and your stories inspire the next ones we tell. Let's build this community together, one story, one connection, one comment at a time.